Welcome, everyone. This is our fourth workshop in the Data Entrepreneurs Discord. I know at least one of you in the audience is new to is maybe new to the stage channel thing. So I'll just quickly run through a quick tour of how this thing works. In the top right corner, we have the this show chat icon, and so if you click on that, you'll be able to leave 10 questions or comments during the presentation without ruining the flow. So I see you've already dropped something in there, so you know where that is. The second thing I want to point out is at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a like hand icon, and that allows you to raise your hand and be invited onto the stage. So uh, Josh and John, if you want to go ahead and click that so you see where that is down there, and you see that comes up, and then there's a request to speak, and then I can actually invite you up onto the stage, and then you can start talking and asking your question. All right, so I'll move Josh back to the audience, and then I will introduce Tan. So Tan is actually the second ever member of this Discord, and he is also one of the moderators. And as far as non-linear and interesting
Yeah.
careers goes, I think Tan has one of the most interesting that I've ever heard of, and he has seemed to find his kind of maybe not dream job, but I would say pretty darn close because it's at the intersection of two things that, or maybe three things he finds interesting, which is marketing, bodybuilding, and analytics. So it's
Right.
a it's a very unique journey, and I'm looking forward to this presentation. So without any further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Tan, to tell us how we can show and not tell.
All right. Appreciate the intro, Shaw. So, like Shaw mentioned, we actually originally made this Discord kind of like as a three-person business podcast type thing, where we were just kind of talking through ideas of what we think works well in business. Especially, I used to own a business as well, which I'll get into in a second. But it's just great seeing how much we've grown, and especially all the new members. So, love to see that. Yeah, show don't tell. How I used Instagram to get my first data analytics job. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name's Tan. I've been playing World of Warcraft since 2006. I played Classic, Mythic Rated, everything. So, very interesting, social dynamic there. I have gone to three different colleges and graduated from none of them. My dad is very upset about that, but I did end up going to a software development Votech. I was thinking about this earlier. I don't know if it's considered a degree. I think it might be a diploma, but either way, we finished that program. And then right after I finished that program, I applied to Renaissance Periodization as a web developer, actually, and they said no. Damn, right? So that kind of gets into the crux of this talk today is that rejection wasn't really the end because I ended up networking with a lot of people that work there and they ended up liking me and they made a role for me at Renaissance Periodization, which, if any of you are watching this, thank you for that. I do like money. And as mentioned, I do enjoy bodybuilding. I just competed in Dallas on May 27th. I did all right. I mean, got a trophy. That's cool. Anyways, get back to this. And so, some of you haven't played World of Warcraft for 17 years. So I'm going to teach you what I used to do to become more comfortable in social situations first. That's what I call the Best Buy pitch. And so the reason I call it that is because in high school, I was so nervous to start conversations, but I knew I needed to get better at it. So I would just go to a Best Buy and I would start talking to the clerks and I would make a scenario in my head ahead of time, which I would recommend for you as well, because if you're not comfortable in social situations, trying to make up a reason to talk to someone on the spot probably isn't going to work well, right? So what I would do is I would be like, hey, okay, today I need to build a theater room, right? In my head, go into the store, talk to the clerk about it. And it sounds really funny, but I think I did this like pretty much every day at multiple stores for like years. Okay, maybe not years, but months. And I actually, ended up getting a lot more comfortable with it. I still don't really know anything about theater rooms, surprisingly enough. I might have been too nervous, just the anxiety got to me. Couldn't remember the information. But again, don't do this if you're easily swayed into purchasing things. You're probably going to buy a lot of stuff. I mean, if you want to buy a lot of stuff, go for it. You're supporting the economy, right? But this is just like one of those non-linear things you can think about, right? If you need, to practice, you can just go practice anywhere, right? It's not like you have to go to those special networking meetings that are on certain times and days. You can make situations in your own head, like Michael Jordan did to win, multiple playoffs. So there you go. And then now I'd like to give you the Ten Commandments of Victor Lustig, I believe is his name. He's the con man that sold the Eiffel Tower twice in the 1800s. His first commandment is be a patient listener. I've noted that's the most important because regardless of what you're doing, that's always going to help you out in any networking situation or even at work, really. Never looked bored. That also is a great one. A few of these I don't necessarily agree with, but we'll get into that in the next slide. Is wait for the other person to reveal any political opinions that agree with them. So it's a little bit risky unless you live somewhere like Oklahoma City or Texas, where a lot of the political opinions are homogenized. Four is let the other person review religious views and have the same ones. Again, this kind of the same thing. Hint at sex talk, but don't follow it up unless the other person shows a strong interest. I wouldn't do this at a networking event, but maybe it's just the two of you and you're just into talking about that kind of stuff. It's whatever. Never discuss illness unless someone has special concerns about it. Sorry. This is a big one. I've noticed this in my own life as well. Like whenever people tell me they're like sick, it's just like the thing that I think about whenever I see them, right? So it's like if someone tells me like, "Oh, I have this condition," I always think of that. Like I'll give you a soft example. One of my friends has celiacs, right? They can't eat gluten, and every time I see them, I'm like, "Damn, that guy can't eat bread." So just keep in mind, like, whenever you tell people things about yourself like that, it does kind of stay with you. Not to say that you should lie or not disclose things like that, but it's kind of time and place for it. Never pry into a person's personal circumstances. They'll tell you all eventually. Super true. If there's any information someone wants to tell you, they will tell you, right? You don't really need to pry information out of people, and it kind of just makes you more unlikable. Never boast. Just let your importance be quietly obvious. A great example of this is Game of Thrones, actually. So if you guys have seen it, the king doesn't need to tell you he's the king. So if you're using Instagram, for example, this is a great time to really just post stuff like, hey, this is something I've been working on. This is something I do. For example, that's what I do with my bodybuilding stuff is I just post on Instagram like, hey, this is the workout I did today. This is how I'm feeling about my progress, things like that. For me, I find that authenticity gets a lot of engagement, and that really helps me out. And again, I work for a fitness company, so it kind of lines up. If you're doing something like data science, you could post something about like a project you're working on, your hopes for it, maybe things you'd like to change or things that you didn't like about it. And then number 9 on his commandments was never be untidy. I have a beard, so it's a little bit harder. But this is a just generally good rule. More than tidiness, I would say just be clean. Like take showers, don't smell bad. That'll help you out a lot in social situations. And then 10 is never get drunk. I think that's a pretty obvious one. Try to be clear of your mind. So how can we use this for good instead of evil? So we kind of went through this earlier. I would kind of just strike points 3 through 5, the wait for political opinions, religious views, and sex talk. I probably just wouldn't really engage in those conversations unless, again, like the person has a strong interest in it, and it's like a small group of you, right? I won't disclose the conversations we had in Las Vegas with the RP people, but we had some really funny conversations that were a mixture of, I guess, 3 and 5, but won't really get into that because what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? So, do we have any comments or questions about this so far? All right. Yes, in that case, I'll just kind of go into a little talk. Close this keynote. Yeah. So, again, so for me, a big part of this is the non-linear path I've taken to get here. So for me, when I first went to high school, I went to culinary school because I was really into Gordon Ramsay, and then I went into a bakery. I worked at a donation firm. I did a bunch of weird jobs all the way up to my current position. And the thing that kind of got me to this was I was always trying to find something that satisfied me or gave me like maybe feel like I was producing value as well. So I tried running my own business for a while, and then unfortunately COVID happened. So that wasn't a great lineup there. But things like that are very easy to keep you down. But in my opinion, it's things like that that really just give you a ton of like real experience that you can't really replicate by a college degree or something. Not that I would know. uh, yeah, so a big thing for me is I used to always say as a joke, like every app is a dating app because really it is, right? It's like the whole point of a dating app is just you two have a keen interest already pre-aligned, right? So whenever you're networking, you can think of it similar way. You're trying to kind of engage in the same interest and go from there. So for me, with Renaissance Periodization, we're a fitness company. So we all kind of start with the foundation of fitness when we start networking, right? So whenever I meet these people, how do I engage with them? I say, hi, my name's Tan, kind of just introduce myself. I wouldn't do an elevator pitch style introduction, which is very common in business school that they teach you this, but um, I've always found it makes the interaction all around more like robotic. You know what I mean? It's like very disingenuous if I start being like, "Hello, my name is Tan. I, do this." I feel like it's just like very rehearsed and it doesn't sound natural. But some people still do it. I don't think it's the correct thing to do. But anyways, from there, what you would do is you kind of just bring up, interests that you both have. So, for example, like let's say Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, right? If you know someone does that, that's an easy way for them to like you. Even if you don't do Jiu Jitsu yourself, if you just mention that they do it, people love that kind of stuff. So, really, I guess the big thing about networking, as Victor Lustig mentioned, is you're trying to get the person to talk a lot more, and you don't want to necessarily inflict a negative image on yourself. So whenever you're talking to these people, just tell them kind of your like goals, like what you enjoy doing, but try to keep out things like that could be perceived as negatives about you, right? So you don't want to do things like kind of complain a lot whenever you first meet someone. I don't know. I feel like that's just one that's not listed on his 10 commandments, but I feel like a very obvious thing that you could add is, don't be too complaintive. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but I think that's most of this talk. For specific tips on like how to engage certain communities on Instagram, really it's going to be mostly just searching by hashtag or location, and then going from there is just really just reaching out. Like it's like even this Discord, right? Like that's how Shaw and I kind of got started. Was we just wanted to discuss these topics, and so we just started reaching out to other people who we thought were interested, and so I feel like that works pretty well. All right. Do we have any questions?
Thanks, Stan. That was very funny.
Thank you.
I was enjoying. I was laughing quietly on mute. But yeah, I think we should definitely open it up for questions. Josh, John, you guys got anything? Anything about networking? Trying to find the right career? Anything in that direction?
Yeah, I think especially finding the right career is just you got to try a bunch of stuff and see if you feel like you're both providing value and receiving value from the company.
I like that
Because
perspective.
if not, there's always freelancing too. So, or I guess even more than freelance, you could just be an entrepreneur, like like our Discord suggests.
Like many in this Discord. Uh,
Right.
so if there are no questions, I have a few here that I'm just
Yeah.
interested to get your perspective on. So, what do you view as the difference between networking and just socializing? Is there a difference, or these? How do you see that?
I would say networking is something that you use to build a network as in you plan to like get back to these people again for a specific reason. Socializing, I would say there's no like inherent motive behind it, right? You're just talking to talk. But I think networking, you do have a specific goal. Like, I want these people for potential connections in the future,
Mm.
like to help, advance my career. At least to me, that would be the main difference. Realistically, though, I would just say networking is more just like socializing in a business style place,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, it's just like you're going to be a little bit more formal generally. You're going to dress a little bit nicer generally. I mean, I say that and I wore Crocs to the last event I went to, so not always true, but I guess once you've kind of shown up a few times, you can take more fashion liberties.
Mm. um, I'm also curious about the networking that went into you getting your current role. Could you kind of add a bit more
Yeah.
kind of color and some of the key points that led up to that?
Yeah. So when I went, it was in Las Vegas, and so one of the things we did was just, like my coach also works for RP, bodybuilding coach, I should say. And so we were all like staying in the same Airbnb. So we decided to go out to dinner with the people from RP. And so at the dinner, I was just talking to everyone, and like, again, I already thought I didn't get the job, right? Because the CEO told me, he's like, hey, we're not really looking to hire any web developers. All right, whatever. So I was just at this dinner, just trying to have a like nice time. And so I was just like talking to people around me. I also didn't know who worked at RP and who was just like friends that were hanging out, right? Because I didn't really, like, I thought that would be weird to be like, what's your role at this company? um, but so what I ended up doing was just kind of like, talking to people, and I didn't drink at all that night, which is, on the list of 10 commandments. So I guess he's right. But I kind of just talked to everyone, like start building a little bit of a connection, and then started reaching out to people on Instagram afterwards. Again, the goal wasn't to get a job with this, but that would be a good way to do it. So I just kind of reached out, like, and one thing I actually did before I got hired that got me the job, funny enough, is I was just making fitness memes, and I was posting it, and then I was sending them all to the RP people, and because it's like, oh, if you guys want, you can just post this, whatever. Like I was just making it because I'm bored. And then about like 2 days later, I got a DM from one of the C-suite executives. He's like, "Hey, do you have? Can you send me your resume and cover letter?" I was like, "Okay, great." So my resume, I think we've discussed this before, but I have basically like a few word banks of stuff. I'll just copy and paste it to whatever relevant job it is.
Hmm.
Because again, I've worked a lot of different jobs. So I've done like bartending, I've done business analytics, I've done this and that. So a lot of wild places where the vocabulary doesn't really cross over well, right? So it's good to have like a feel or a bank of stuff you just pull from. And then the cover letter, I don't think I mentioned this during the talk, but what I usually do is I'll go to the company's website and kind of try to match the language they use. So, like, if you go to their mission statement or values, things like that, you can kind of get a feel of what they're, trying to project as far as their image. You can kind of just put that into your cover letter. So, for my cover letter, I mentioned I used the RP principles to, get in, lean, get lean for the stage, things like that.
Hmm.
So for me, like my hobbies really did help me get the job.
Yeah.
I don't know if World of Warcraft helped me get the job necessarily, but
There are two things that really stood out about your story. Like, one, when you were like networking with these people at the dinner, like you didn't have like a motive. You were just trying to build relationships and connections and just like get to know people and have a good time. So that
right,
really stood out to me. And then the second thing, um, is you were focused on demonstrating value. So you were just making fitness memes and essentially you're making content and giving it to them for free. So you weren't
right,
asking or expecting anything in return. You were just like, "Hey, I think this is cool and I like your stuff." And then it just kind of seemed to evolve and everything seemed to fall into place. Kind of what are your main takeaways and reflections kind of on this journey? And it seemed like this happened kind of like knowing you like over a pretty short period of time too, maybe like 6 months.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because that dinner was originally in December, and then I got hired in April, so it was crazy. Yeah, it was just like you said, it's a big value demonstration thing. Because I believe Alex Formosi even mentioned it. Like, you shouldn't ask people, "Oh, what can I do for you?" You should just do something for them and see if that's what they want,
Hmm.
basically. So sometimes it'll feel like you're wasting your time, but really you can just think of it like you're doing a project, right? Like if you're doing like, let's say you're in let's say software development, right? And you're like, oh, I don't want to do this for them for free because I know I'm worth whatever amount of money.
Hmm.
Like, okay, that's true. You could get paid for it if you had a job, but if you don't have a job, you might as well just think of it as a practice project, right? And just kind of get some reps in.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, like, in my opinion, like it's very easy to have those strong morals of like, oh, I should be paid for any work I do,
Hmm.
which I agree with. It's good to get paid, but if you are unemployed, you should probably focus more on getting employed than the value return on it. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. I really agree with that, and I think it. applies to like the data science space and more technical roles as well. Like you can demonstrate value through content creation, or if you're freelancing, you can demonstrate value by kind of reaching out to people and telling them solutions to their problems. Like if you see someone kind of talking about something on LinkedIn that they're struggling with, or you've identified a customer on Upwork, potential customer on Upwork that's posted a job, you can like speak directly to their problem by just providing a solution up front without expecting anything in return. And it's there's a bit of tension there. It's because you want to be compensated. You don't want people to just like take your effort and work and just like run off and give you nothing. But I feel if you do it right, do it in the right way, you can open yourself up to so many bigger opportunities beyond just like a transactional time for money kind of thing. Like I don't know. Do you have any reflections on that idea of kind of the balance between giving too much or giving the right amount, or who to give to and all
Right.
that?
Yeah. So I would say, like, especially in the fitness sphere, you'll notice a lot of people just give out a lot of great advice for free. Like, people will DM like very famous people, and they'll just respond sometimes. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And so that might be something more niche to the, like more of the niche of the fitness industry. But really, I guess another thing you could do if you want to demonstrate that you have the capacity to give value without necessarily giving it out,
Mm-hmm.
you could like make a website for a company. Like, let's say there's local businesses around you. You can make a website, like host it somewhere free, or just pay like DigitalOcean, just very cheap thing, and then show it to the owner and be like, hey, I made this website. What do you think? And then be like, okay, I'll sell it to you for like however much you think it's worth. I guess depending on how much effort you put into it.
Mm-hmm.
Or what I used to do is I would make marketing packages. So like, hey, I'll set you up with a website, Instagram. I'll take some photos for you, whatever. And then like, if you want to keep me on monthly after that to do more photos and stuff, like I'll do that. But if not, it's just a one-time fee. And so you can have packages like that to kind of show it. But I think if you actually make it for that company, and because it's a lot easier whenever you see it, like, oh, this is what it looks like,
Mm-hmm.
compared to like me having to imagine something based on your description of it, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's also pretty common. Like when I used to own a medical marijuana business. I think Shaw remembers, but one thing it was when I hired the guy that was doing the artwork for it, he sent me like probably like 15 different like packages of like stuff already done with my branding and
Oh
everything.
wow.
And so I remember I was like, damn, like, because at the time I didn't really have that mindset of like, oh, you can just give things out to people and kind of just get value back later.
Mm-hmm.
But that was one thing I remember is like, oh, maybe this is like a thing that people do. Because we actually did end up changing the brand name because of what he sent us. So
Yeah, that's really cool. Um, so I'll, I think we're getting close to time here, about 5 more minutes. But I wanted to open it up if, Josh and John, you guys had any questions that may have popped up during this discussion over the past 10 minutes. I have one more question, but I wanted to give you guys a chance to ask before I went on.
yeah, like John is typing something. Great
Great
talk.
talk.
Thank
I
you.
love it. So maybe one final thing is what's next for you? You've had
Right.
uh, this crazy wild. You've worked in every industry, so we don't have to, as you said
Right.
to me once. Kind of, what do you see as like your future?
Yeah, honestly, like long term, I'm not 100% sure yet. I'll probably end up freelancing or running my own business at some point. Um, but I mean, at the current point, I was thinking about this yesterday. Actually, I was thinking like, what would have to be offered for me to leave my current role?
Mm,
I actually don't know. Like, I don't know what amount of money it would have to be because it would have to be a substantial amount. Because to me, whenever I say a company provides value to me, that's also more than the amount of money I receive from them, right?
yeah.
It's the satisfaction from the work, like the actual people I work with. So for me, I currently love all the people I work with. I actually really enjoyed the job itself. So it's like, I don't know, like I think probably I'll work here for at least a few years and then
Yeah.
kind of reassess from there. Because I think it is important. Like, January 1st every year, I make a new goal. Like, a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year goal,
Hmm.
and so far I haven't kept any of them, but I like to make them every year.
That's
Maybe I'll
funny.
do that next year too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. So stay in the role,
Yeah.
kind of build the relationships, build that experience. But vision is, getting into freelancing, starting your own business.
Right.
I like that. Yeah, I see John is typing. We'll give you a second, John, or if you want to jump off mute or come up on the stage to ask your question, if you have one, we can do that here. Oh, do I have any questions? Oh, here we go.
Oh yeah, that's a great way to do it. That was actually one of the things we discussed doing as a final project for my software development Votech was contributing to open software instead of or open source software instead of like just doing a project. Because realistically, whenever you do these projects for these Votech schools, it's like, yeah, you put it into a like portfolio, you put it into a whatever you want, but it's not really the same as like a real project, right? Because a lot of the time it's just like a stock website that's running some basic thing. It's like whenever you're contributing to an actual big project, and your name is there whenever they Google it or something, that adds a lot of credibility to you as a person as well, in my opinion. Because that's one thing I really regretted was, because I guess for my role it didn't really matter because they asked me if I had like you know portfolio for my specific web development, software development, but I didn't save it because I didn't know they were going to delete it when I graduated. That was my mistake. Yeah. But yeah, I wish I did have it. So now I do need to go back and kind of work on it. That's one thing Sean and I've discussed a few times, like working on a project and then like kind of contributing over time. But
Hmm.
I think that is a great way to network too, because I used to help out with a project called Questy. It's an add-on for World of Warcraft.
Mm.
So that's in Lua, which is God, what am I trying to think of for Lua? It's a scripting language, anyways. But yeah, so I just loosely contributed on that for a while, and that was fun. But what? Yeah, I did not like Lua, so I did not stay on.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, that was
Well,
an interesting time.
yes, indeed. I really like the open source idea, and hopefully, as our community grows here, we'll have more and more ideas coming up in the projects board and more opportunities to kind of spin something up from here and make it open source. Just so
Right.
just encouraging that, promoting that development and that collaboration within the community. Because I think we have a tremendous amount of expertise and insight from everyone that's in this community. It's pretty remarkable.
Oh yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
so yeah, thanks again, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Tan, for your time in the presentation and kind of sharing with us your very entertaining and insightful journey and story. So we're going to post this event recording in the past events channel, and it'll also go up on the Data Entrepreneurs YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribed, be sure to subscribe so you can kind of keep up with all the events we got going on. We've also have a like 30-second survey. It's basically like one question that's mandatory and two optional questions. So basically a one question survey just to give feedback on how we can improve these events and any feedback for the speaker. Um, and yeah, so I just want to thank you guys again for joining, John and Josh. Thank you, Tan. And then we'll have our next workshop coming up on, let's see, I think it's on July 12th. Let me just double check. Yeah, we got a workshop coming up on July 12th about freelancer financial essentials, which I'm really excited about, given by Mateo, who
Yeah.
was kind of a top freelancer on Upwork, and he has recently transitioned into becoming a certified financial planner, kind of specializing for freelancers, solopreneurs, and startups. So I think we that's going to be a very informative session for anyone that is interested or curious about that journey, because we all got to do taxes, we all got to think about finances and business.
Mhm.
All right, guys. Yeah, thanks again, Tan, and see you guys at the next one.